Hello everyone, it's Rachel here at Cloudy Hands Crafts. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how I decorate a junk journal insert for a traveller's notebook. To start with, I'm going to be using this piece of lace trim to make a tie closure. I'm measuring it by eye with the amount of ribbon that I want to have available for tying together. It needs to be a decent amount because it can be really annoying to try and tie a bow when you don't have enough to work with. I recommend you test it before you cut. I had this centrepiece which I cut from the Stamperia Romantic Journal collection, and I knew that I wanted it to be on the front cover. I figured that the centre was going to be the best place for it, so I proceeded to glue the lace trim down so that the wonderful piece would be glued on top of that. I glued the trim using lots of evenly applied art glitter glue. I use this for most things. I applied it to the cover rather than the trim, as that was the easiest way to keep it in the right position. I was then able to glue that frame over the top of that, and it should make that even more securely attached, being sandwiched between the cover and the embellishment. I then flipped over to the back of the notebook to stick down the lace. Of course I could have left it loose, but I wanted to keep things looking fairly neat and obvious where they were supposed to be. When gluing fabric like this, be careful not to overstretch it when you are sticking it down, because that will make it a lot more likely to peel away from the paper, as it will have extra tension trying to pull it out of position. The paper pad I was using had a page of these square journal cards to use, so I cut them apart, and I decided to use this first one as a kind of extra wide belly band. I glued the side edges of it and then stuck it down in the centre of the page, which left a channel down the middle for slotting bookmarks or tags inside. I wanted to make a tag that would be seen from the top and the bottom of this wide belly band, so I found one that I had in my stash. As you can see, the colours didn't exactly coordinate with this one, so I used it as a template for cutting another one from the coordinating paper scraps. I added a loop of jute twine as a tag pull, which coordinated really nicely, and I clipped the ends to make them nice and even. I could have made the tag a bit longer so that there would be more on show below the belly band, but I didn't think of that at the time. Once it was in, I trimmed down the strings so that they were in line with the top of the pages, and then I moved on to the next page that I wanted to decorate. I decided to make an extra wide side-loading pocket, and I thought that this piece with the preserved memories written on it would work well. I like to include bits of text when I can because it can really make an effective focal point. I kept in mind the placement of the text when I cut the section down to size, and I made it the right length to fit snugly on the page with the text centralised. I wasn't happy with the first choice of page that I made for this element, so I flipped through the journal to find a more suitable one. I realised eventually that I had accidentally stitched one of the pages in upside down, and happily this larger pocket would be a perfect way to cover it. I glued around 3 edges of the large pocket, leaving one of the long edges unglued, and then flipped it and stuck it down with the open edge facing towards the edge of the page and leaving a 1/4 inch gap between the glued edge and the book spine. I wanted the open edge to be at that side so that I can make a journal card with a pull tab that would poke out of the edge of the book, adding to the shabby chic effect of it. The tab was made from a scrap of lace trim, which I folded and stuck to the front and back side of the card. I then added some decoration to the card using a scrap of paper bag, some fussy cut images from the paper pad, and a scrap of tea-stained paper. I layered the paper strips onto one side of the card and then stuck them down when I was happy with the placement. I then played around with the placement of the images until it created a visually pleasing layout. Once it was finished, I slipped the journal card into the pocket, and you can see the edge and the tab peeking out there. For the next element, I decided on a tall corner tuck spot. Making it taller makes it more secure for larger ephemera to be inserted. I simply took one of the large offcuts from my 12 by 12 papers and then tore the top off it in a slightly curved diagonal line. I added a line of glue to the bottom and the side edge and then stuck it down, aligning the corners and the edges. I remembered to make a longer tag this time and took a piece of design paper that was the same width as my template tag. I aligned the top of the tag with the top of the paper and then held it in place while I snipped the corners and punched the hole in the right positions. I then used my paper trimmer to cut the tag down to a suitable length. I threaded it with some embroidery floss and then it was ready to be slipped into the tuck spot. Next was a simple tuck spot made from one of those square journal cards. Then I tore some design paper down to size to act as a journal card in the long vellum pocket that was stitched into the journal. I used a torn scrap to make an upwards tuck in the top right corner of one of the pages. Then I wanted to decorate it with more of the images from the pad. I chose the little clock, but I felt that it needed something to hang from, so I took a scrap of calico fabric and threaded it through the hole that I had cut out. I trimmed the fabric down to a size that would lie in a comfortable curve so that it would look a bit more natural than if it was just a straight line. I glued the fabric and the clock to keep it securely in position. I had to trim one of the square journal cards down to make a narrower size to fit in the tuck spot, and I love the echo of the clock on this card and I think it looks great as part of the page. I placed an additional straight edge tuck spot on the opposite diagonal corner to balance the layout, and then I added these flower motifs to the front of that. I like adding these darker images to a pale neutral layout as they add a punch of interest to what can easily become a very samey project. Next I created a belly band using a scrap strip, glued at the ends, and I added this little gemstone to make a pop of colour. I made another tag to slide behind the belly band, and I added a bit of extra detail to this one by creating a little pocket using some of the floral paper scraps, using the edge of the tag as a guide and cutting it down by hand. This provided a little hiding spot for a mini journal card, which I made by rounding the corners of some plain white card. And that was able to be tucked in behind the belly band. I followed the design of this next piece of paper by tearing the edge to make it blend. I made the piece full length to turn it into a side loading pocket, and this time it would be loading from the inside edge rather than the outside. I don't think I recorded it, but I filled the pocket with some simple journal cards. On a different page I made another corner tuck spot, this time with a scrap which had been torn on the edge. I glued that on two edges and stuck it down and then proceeded to decorate it by lightly gluing on this piece of thin vintage lace. I laid a fussy cut flower image over the top of that, position it in the middle of the pocket. On the opposite page I glued some of this gorgeous lacy trim. I don't know how to pronounce the name for this kind of trim. It's something like guipure. That's probably a terrible attempt at saying it, but if you're quick there might still be some of this available on my website. After that I went through the journal and filled any of the empty pockets with journal cards and tags. I also added a couple of extra pockets and belly bands and things like that throughout, but I'll give you a little flip through now to show you everything that I did inside. The paper pad that I used was called the Romantic Journal Collection from Stamperia, and I've used lots of bits that were in my stash, including some of the trims and things that I've got in my shop. I have recently added some new tags which are plain white with jute twine string pulls, so they go quite nicely in this kind of theme as well. And they can also be used to add mixed media and things because they are nice and thick and good quality card. This journal will be going up for sale and I will let you know here on YouTube and on Instagram as well. I did promise this video a while ago and I'm sorry that it's taken so long to get up. It's taken me ages to get the voiceover recorded. So thank you for waiting for me and for watching today, and I will see you again shortly for another video. Thanks a lot. Bye.